These 10 political prisoners were locked up for their beliefs, but prison didn't stop them. They went on to lead their nations. Let's check them out. Number 10, Václav Havel. Imagine being in your 40s, constantly jailed, released, then jailed again. That was Havel's reality. But when communism crumbled and the Soviet Union dissolved, Czechoslovakia needed a leader who truly understood the struggle. And Havel? He was that man. A playwright, a poet, a dissident. He became the face of the Civic Forum, the group pushing for radical change. He was instrumental in the Velvet Revolution, a bloodless transition of power. And in December 1989, just like that, Václav Havel became the interim president of Czechoslovakia, the country's first non-communist leader since 1948. Talk about a comeback. Number 9, Anwar Ibrahim. Before he reached the pinnacle of Malaysian politics, Anwar Ibrahim endured nearly a decade in jail, largely on what many consider trumped-up charges. 6 years for corruption in '99, and then, while still behind bars, another 9 for sodomy. A law, thankfully, now repealed in Malaysia. To truly grasp Ibrahim's journey, you have to understand his complex relationship with former Prime Minister Mahathir bin Mohamad. They were close until a major disagreement over economic policy during the Asian financial crisis. Ibrahim was fired and then convicted. But here's where it gets wild. Fast forward to 2018, and 92-year-old Mahathir, back as Prime Minister, pledged to seek a royal pardon for Ibrahim. And he did. Sultan Muhammad V granted it. 5 days later, Ibrahim was free, back in politics, won a seat in parliament, and by 2022, he was the Prime Minister himself. An unbelievable twist of fate. Number 8, Aung San Suu Kyi. Her father, a politician himself, was assassinated when she was just 2. Later, married with children, she returned to Burma, now Myanmar, to care for her ailing mother. It was during this time that she was drawn into the political maelstrom, joining nonviolent protests against military rule. The military government soon placed her under house arrest for years. During that time, she was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, and tragically, her husband passed away. But despite immense pressure and threats, she held firm. Her persistence ultimately guided Myanmar to its first free elections, a landslide victory for her party, the National League for Democracy. At one point after her victory, she held 4 ministerial posts and was even named state councilor, a position effectively higher than the president, an extraordinary example of peaceful defiance. Number 7, Ho Chi Minh. Born into poverty under French colonial rule, Ho Chi Minh began his political awakening in France, organizing Vietnamese expatriates into a movement. A staunch admirer of Leninist Russia, he made numerous trips to Moscow, seeking refuge and support from the powers that sought to maintain French control in Vietnam. But here's a crucial turn. When France fell to Germany in early World War II, Ho saw his chance. He established the Viet Minh, the League for the Independence of Vietnam. He was even forced to seek help from the Chinese, who, distrusting him as a communist, arrested him, and he spent 18 months in a Chinese prison. But with Japan defeated by the United States and France by Germany, the path was clear. Ho Chi Minh, who had even collaborated with the United States against Japan, declared Vietnam independent. A master strategist, even from behind bars. Number 6, Jawaharlal Nehru. As a fierce anti-colonialist, Nehru was arrested and imprisoned 9 times for a staggering total of over 9 years. After a period in Europe, he returned to India, becoming a leading voice for a free India, the intellectual firebrand of the youth. The colonialists certainly didn't make it easy for him. In 1929, he was elected president of the Indian National Congress, pushing for independence. He was imprisoned repeatedly between 1930 and 1935, then again in 1940 for protesting India's involvement in the war, and one last time in 1942 for his longest continuous incarceration. But less than 5 years after his final release, Jawaharlal Nehru became the very first prime minister of an independent India, a testament to enduring vision. Number 5. Lech Walesa. When Lech Walesa lost his job for participating in the 1970 food riots, the die was cast. His path was clear. Walesa became famous for forming the Solidarity trade union, a massive movement. But when Solidarity was outlawed and martial law was imposed in Poland, Walesa and other leaders were arrested and detained for almost a year. The Polish government was furious when, in 1983, Walesa was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize while still under detention. But public pressure works. Solidarity was eventually restored, free elections were held, and Solidarity won a massive majority in parliament. In 1990, Walesa ran for president, winning Poland's first direct presidential election by a landslide. From shipyard worker to Nobel laureate to president, an incredible journey. Number 4. Kim Dae-jung. Born in 1924 into humble beginnings, Kim Dae-jung even made a daring escape from communists during the early Korean War. But it was in the 1950s that he emerged as a beacon of democratic hope, charismatic and naturally likable. However, in a communist government, years of criticism can lead to serious consequences. Kim was in and out of jail and under house arrest repeatedly. But then President Park Chung-hee had him arrested on charges of conspiracy and sedition, and the unthinkable happened, a death sentence. Miraculously, he was spared by Park's successor and allowed to leave for the United States, which was effectively an exile. It wasn't until 1997, after several attempts, that he finally won the presidency, also going on to win the Nobel Peace Prize in 2000. An inspiring tale of survival and triumph. Number 3. Eugene Victor Debs. A 5-time socialist candidate for the United States presidency, Debs was the outspoken leader of the labor movement during the booming, yet often brutal, industrial era after World War I. He was an early proponent of socialism in a time of long hours and little pay, which made him deeply unpopular with the establishment. After leading a rally that clashed with government troops, Debs was sentenced to 6 months for contempt of court. It was in jail that his socialist ideas were sharpened and solidified. He ran 4 consecutive losing presidential campaigns from the Socialist Party after his release. But then, in 1918, he was jailed again for violating the Espionage Act by speaking out against United States involvement in World War I. And get this, in his 5th and final campaign, he garnered 1 million votes for president while running from prison. He was released a year later. What a testament to unwavering conviction. Number 2. Adolf Hitler. When we think of political prisoners, we usually imagine Hitler's victims, not the Führer himself. But it's true. In his ascent to power, Hitler spent time behind bars. During what's known as the Beer Hall Putsch, Hitler and his followers attempted a coup in Munich, which was quickly foiled. Hitler was charged with high treason, convicted, and sentenced to 5 years. He ended up serving less than a year. But that short stint was enough time for him to complete his infamous autobiography, Mein Kampf, and truly formalize his twisted manifesto. Many historians argue that his imprisonment actually galvanized support for his growing Nazi movement, turning him into a martyr for his cause and setting the stage for his notorious rise to power. A chilling reminder that even darkness can emerge from unexpected places. Number 1. Joseph Stalin. Before he became one of the most brutal and notorious leaders in Russian history, Joseph Stalin, born Joseph Vissarionovich Jugashvili, was forged by hardship, much like others on this list. He adopted the name Stalin, meaning man of steel, in his 30s, as he began to seize control of his destiny. Heavily influenced by Karl Marx, he became a shadowy, underground political operative, organizing labor demonstrations and strikes. This is where he got involved in all sorts of illegal activities, including bank robberies, using the proceeds to fund the Bolshevik Party. Between 1902 and 1913, Stalin was arrested numerous times, imprisoned, and exiled to Siberia. But even from exile in Switzerland, he was appointed to the first Central Committee of the Bolshevik Party, the very party that would overthrow the government just 3 years later. With Lenin as their leader and Stalin right there with him, the rest, as they say, is history. A truly dark path from prison to ultimate power. Mind-blowing, right? Which of these stories amazed you most? Tell us in the comments. Don't forget to follow for more.